Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. And before we begin, as always, check out all the links in our description below, where you can go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and also check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks, where for just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And I can promise you that's a deal you do not want to pass up, and you certainly do not want to miss out on our Week 2 expert picks, where you can find out if we are taking the road favorite in LSU, or if we are taking Texas, where Tom Herman has thrived as an underdog with an 8-2-1 record against the spread. Well, I have to say that Christmas came early this year. The college football gods gifted us with an early season top 10 matchup between two historic programs as number 6 LSU travels to Austin to take on the number 9 Texas Longhorns. And this game is huge for so many reasons, but none bigger because this game has major college football playoff implications. And many people are quick to say that this is a college football playoff elimination game. And I'm not going to go that far yet. I do not think that the loser of this game is out of the college football playoff race. They obviously just have less room for error going through the rest of this 2019 season. If LSU were to fall to the Longhorns, I believe that they would need to run the table, which would include a win over Alabama, to be in consideration for the college football playoff. I do not believe a 2-loss LSU team would be in the running for that. The same can be said for Texas. If they were to fall to the Tigers here, they would need to beat Oklahoma in the regular season, much like they did last year, and then maybe beat the Sooners again in the Big 12 championship game if they want to get to the college football playoff. So, major implication in this game. The loser is not out, but they will take a big blow to their season, while the winner will have a huge resume-boosting win as they were trying to make the college football playoff in 2019. Now this game, of course, these two teams, as we mentioned, very historic programs, but have not met since 2003. Texas leads the all-time series against the Tigers, 9 wins to 7 losses and 1 tie. They last met in 2003 in the Cotton Bowl, where Mack Brown's Longhorns took down Nick Saban and the LSU Tigers 35-20. Of course, a lot has changed since 2003, 16 years ago. This game has made headlines not only because it's a top 10 matchup, but because it will feature two of the better quarterbacks in the entire nation, as LSU's Joe Burrow will face off against Texas's Sam Ehlinger. And we'll start with Burrow coming over from Baton Rouge, where he had a dominant performance in their Week 1 win against Georgia Southern, throwing for 23 of 27 passes, only having 4 incompletions, 278 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Last year, Burrow had over 2,800 yards through the air, 16 touchdowns, as well as 7 rushing touchdowns. And we've said it before, and we will continue to say this over and over, that this could be one of the better, or maybe the best, LSU offenses we have seen in probably the past decade. They never really had a potent offense under Les Miles. Very run-heavy and very defensive-led. Ed Orgeron has kind of flipped the script where the defense is still the strength for the Tigers, but he has finally put together a dominant offense down in Baton Rouge. And it'll be interesting to see how Burrow faces off against a very underrated Texas defense. We'll get there in a second, but we got to talk about Sam Ehlinger, one of the better quarterbacks, as we mentioned, in the entire nation, arguably the best quarterback in the Big 12. Ehlinger throwing for 276 yards last week against Louisiana Tech, including 4 touchdowns. Last year, throwing for over 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions to go along with 16 rushing touchdowns. And many people are quick to say that Ehlinger makes more plays with his legs, makes more plays with his feet. He's not that good of a pocket passer. Well, that game against Louisiana Tech last week begged to differ, as well as all of his stats from last season. While Ehlinger can make plays on the ground, we saw that from his 16 rushing touchdowns, he can be very dominant in the pocket and does have the ability to extend plays as he escapes out of the pocket. LSU in this game is favored by the FPI, the Football Power Index, with an 80% chance to win in Austin. I personally think that's a little bit too high. The Tigers are, yes, a dominant team, but Austin is one of the more difficult places to play and has finally built that name back up under Tom Herman. It was certainly not the case under Charlie Strong. but it is now under Tom Herman. Sam Ehlinger proclaimed that Texas was back after their Sugar Bowl victory over Georgia. This game, like we said at the beginning of this video, will be very telling if that is true or not. If they defeat LSU, Texas is absolutely back. If they do not, we might have to take a step back and reevaluate. We mentioned the quarterback play between the Tigers and the Longhorns, how that's going to be so important and the main focus for everybody in this game. But the running game is one that is going to probably be the difference maker in this game between the Tigers and Texas. The problem is, neither of these two teams have a very potent rushing game. Last week for LSU, Clyde Edwards-Helaire only rushed for 45 yards and 1 touchdown against Georgia Southern. Yes, a respectable team out of the Sun Belt, but you would have expected a more dominant performance on the ground from a decent LSU offensive line against a weaker defensive line out of the Sun Belt. The same can be said for Keontae Ingram at Texas, who only rushed for 78 yards and 1 touchdown against Louisiana Tech after rushing for over 700 yards last season for the Longhorns. So someone's got to be able to get the edge on the ground game because we expect Burrow and Sam Ehlinger to be slinging it across the field the entire night, but you got to have some sort of balance. And I think Texas right now owns the slight edge in the rushing game with Keontae Ingram. I'm not saying that's going to be the biggest difference maker, but it will certainly take a little bit of the edge off of Ehlinger and this passing game, especially going up against one of the better secondaries in the entire nation. Maybe even the best secondary in the entire nation. LSU will be led, of course, by Grant Delpit, Christian Fulton, and freshman Derek Stingley, who can also be a very dangerous punt returner for the Tigers. So not only is he a threat on the defensive side of the ball, he is a threat in the special teams. The Tigers forced 2 turnovers last week against Georgia Southern. Not the amount of turnovers I'm sure they wanted, but really there's not much room to complain when you defeat the Eagles 55-3. Everybody wants to talk about LSU secondary and how potent they are and how they're the best in the entire nation. But everybody is forgetting that Texas has a sneaky good secondary going into this game against the Tigers. They have Brandon Jones and Caden Stearns and a defense that forced 3 turnovers against Louisiana Tech, a respectable opponent out of the Conference USA last week. Of course, the Longhorns winning that game 45-14. So both teams have a very strong secondary, going to be the strength on the defensive side of the ball for both teams, and of course that doesn't bode well for either quarterback as both teams will be relying on their passing game. So what are the keys going into this game? What are the keys for LSU if they want to come on the road and win? FBI is giving them an 80% chance to win, and right now they're at least a 6 to 6.5 point favorite to come on the road and defeat the Longhorns. How will they win this game? Well, the key for LSU is to keep Sam Ehlinger in the pocket. Analysts out there say Ehlinger is not as good in the pocket. He's better on the ground. LSU has even come out and said that Ehlinger is much more better on the ground. Yeah, he's an okay thrower. Yeah, he's an okay passer. But he's much better on the ground. We can beat him if we force him to throw. Well, let's see it. Force Ehlinger to throw. Keep him inside the pocket. Prevent him from extending plays and making the plays on the ground and on the run. If they can do that and force Ehlinger to win through the air, you might be able to generate a little bit of pressure and force some turnovers that could strongly benefit this LSU team. What are the keys for Texas? How can Texas solidify that they are truly back and get a huge resume-boosting win for the college football playoff at home and try to show that they are absolutely college football playoff contenders? The key for Texas is to get a fast start. They cannot afford a slow start in this game against the LSU Tigers. They cannot afford for what I would expect to be a sellout crowd in Austin to get quiet and take them out of the game. Home field advantage matters so much in college football, and it will matter none bigger in this game against LSU. Get a fast start and get that crowd involved early. But they do have to understand this. Texas, this game is not a sprint. This game is not one where you can start out fast, get the crowd involved, jump out to maybe a 14-0 lead and call it quits. This game is a marathon, and LSU absolutely knows that. We've seen that under recent years under Ed Orgeron, and we can expect to see it again in Austin on Saturday night. If Texas gets out to a fast start, they have to play the entire 60 minutes. Everybody knows that, but not everybody does that. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Similar for Texas as well, another key for them We mentioned the run game and that we think Keontae Ingram owns the edge on the ground. Texas needs to get Keontae Ingram involved in the passing game. And they did that a little bit in their win against Louisiana Tech last week. Get him involved more against LSU. With this strong of a secondary, I would not expect Sam Ehlinger to be taking many shots deep and testing this secondary across the middle or down the sideline. Get Ingram involved in some screens and some short passes, spread the field against this LSU defense, and march the ball down the field with long, methodical drives that can hopefully wear down this LSU defense. Those are the keys for Texas if they want to get probably the signature win of the Tom Herman era. Many would say that was Georgia last year, but if they pull off this win against LSU, that would certainly replace that. The keys for both teams in this game is going to be winning the turnover battle. And you can say that for any team. You can say that for any team in any game. Win the turnover battle, you're going to be good 9 times out of 10. The problem is neither quarterback is very turnover prone. Each quarterback only threw 5 interceptions in 2018. Sam Ehlinger and Joe Burrow both take very good care of the football. And so whoever wins the turnover battle could very well win this game in Austin. It's going to be an absolute shootout, in my opinion. A lot of offense, despite strong defenses, it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of offense. And I expect a very close game. This game for Texas reminds me of the Notre Dame game they had back in 2016. Many people thought Texas was back after that win. They beat Notre Dame, who was number 10, in overtime. Texas, of course, wasn't truly back from most people until 2018, 2 years later. For LSU, this game reminds me a lot of the Miami game last year. Sure, LSU's a favorite coming into this game. They were underdogs in that Miami game last year. But I don't know if everybody's getting LSU enough credit going into this game in Austin. It reminds me a lot of the Miami game where LSU annihilated the Hurricanes, even though the score looked a lot closer than it really was. Some people out there are expecting LSU to show these boys from the Big 12 what the SEC is all about. Let's see if they can do that. I don't expect LSU to dominate Texas, but I do expect the Tigers to defeat Texas. LSU will come into Austin and win a narrow game against the Longhorns behind dominant passing attacks from Joe Burrow and Sam Ehlinger. But in the end, LSU's secondary makes the plays when it matters most. Joe Burrow makes the plays when it matters most. More of a game manager, in my opinion, than Sam Ehlinger. And the Tigers walk away at 2-0, and it may be time to put the Texas's back talk on hold, at least for a few more weeks. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And of course, go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks, where for just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And I can promise you that's a deal you do not want to pass up, and I can promise you you do not want to miss out on our Week 2 expert picks. And guys, once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.